It's not meth, it's not crack, it's not OxyContin, but fentanyl, the deadliest drug to Americans, particularly young people. Now the Biden administration is taking a new approach in the war on the drug. The Centers for Disease Control reporting over 100,000 deaths were tied to fentanyl in the past year, actually from 21 to 22. The new plan, an extension of Mr. Biden's national drug control strategy. It calls for more financial sanctions against traffickers, with an emphasis on addressing untreated addiction, dismantling and disrupting drug trafficking production and supply chains, and preventing drug overdose deaths to save lives. Let's bring in former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson, currently running for president for the GOP. He also served as head of the DEA in the George W. Bush administration. So good to see you as always. You know, I have to ask you, you've made border security a major focus of your campaign, but I want to know what you would do if you were in charge today, if you were sitting in the White House with all of the news of the Biden administration's plans. What would you do differently?
Well, first of all, this is one of the most extraordinary challenges that we face in America, with over 100,000 deaths. I know a couple of families that's been impacted about this personally. What I would do, first of all, and most importantly, is to declare those cartels that are responsible for bringing in the fentanyl. I would declare them as foreign terrorist organizations. That is what is missing in the strategy that President Biden outlined. And that allows more of the government to be engaged in more serious sanctions, more stringent controls in going after the cartel and also controlling the fentanyl that comes in. Secondly, you got to put pressure on Mexico to be a partner in this. And I would put economic pressure. I would tell the president of Mexico that I will be, as president, calling up industry and saying, don't relocate in Mexico until they start cooperating with us on going after the cartels and controlling the fentanyl coming in. You've got to use the leverage of the White House. There are some good things that are in the strategy that was outlined by President Biden, including education. We've got to continue to invest in that for our young people, for our young adults, that they know the risk and the danger of using drugs because it could be laced with fentanyl. But those are two very specific things. And the third thing would be to encourage Mexico to allow more DEA agents in Mexico to work in cooperation with local law enforcement, going after the cartel again, going after the precursors coming in from China, and helping to reduce that flow of drugs coming in and cash going out.
Well, it sounds really good, and I think that everybody would agree that Mexico is a crucial part of this equation. But I've spoken to other people, and they've seemed to say that this would threaten our trade. This would be not good for partnerships with North American allies. What do you say to that? Because the cartels are in bed with the Mexican government. How do we initiate that kind of a sanctioning?
Well, first of all, you don't close the border, because that's where the commerce goes back and forth. I understand, as being Undersecretary at Homeland Security, the importance of that to our industry. So I didn't say that. What I said was I'd be calling up industry that's trying to reshore from China or from other places overseas closer to the United States. And Mexico is a logical place. They're going to have an economic boom. But that will slow down, and that's the economic pressure we can use on Mexico to cooperate with us to a greater extent. No company should locate in Mexico if Mexico is not serious about the rule of law and supporting the industry that locates there. And so to me, that's the leverage that we can use, the economic pressure, and we can do it in a way that doesn't disrupt right now the transfer of commerce between our countries.
You know, for those who are watching, obviously illegal immigration has to come into this conversation. I know that the plan under the administration is to label fentanyl an official emerging drug threat to the nation. That's a first of its kind. But that's in word. What do we need to do in deed in terms of the people who are coming into this country illegally to stop fentanyl from coming across the border?
Well, you've got to do a couple things, because you're right. The cartel is using human traffickers to bring the fentanyl across. And so you've got to give the Border Patrol more resources. You've got to complete the infrastructure between the ports of entry. You've got to tighten up our asylum rules to make sure that somebody who comes in and seeks asylum has first considered if they're coming from Central America or elsewhere, they're transiting through Mexico, they should claim that place as asylum first. And then the asylum should only be claimed at the ports of entry and should be processed immediately so they're not released in the United States when they don't have a good asylum claim.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.